Hello, this is Patrick Parker. I am the CEO and co-founder of EmpowerID. I recently gave a keynote talk at the EIC conference in Berlin, and this is actually my keynote talk. It can be found online. And one of the things I discussed were LLM AI agents. And one of the examples I gave, I mentioned briefly, was that as a test for a workshop we had at the conference, that I tested to see, could you possibly create a policy decision point, a PDP, simply using an LLM, where the LLM would have natural language policies or even policies in a policy as code language, and could answer and give decisions back in a human language response or even in a response matching a JSON format like auth-then, which is an interop standard that's being proposed and worked on right now. So I took about a day and a half, 2 days in my hotel when I was preparing for the talk, just to see, as a thought process or a mental test, could this be done? This is not designed to be a product. It's really just meant to see how close are we to a future where AI and LLMs are powerful enough that they could even perform complex tasks like becoming a policy decision point. So what I did was I generated in OpenAI an assistant, and I have a whole sample scenario. I generated a sample application based upon a prompt. So I actually used ChatGPT to design my sample application. And my sample application it came up with was called Vigilant Guardian, which is based on the Marvel Universe. That's my application. And the idea is that it's an application for managing access control for high-value resources. You have various users in departments. These were the initial users. I've expanded it since then. You have your resource types. So for your application, you might have tech assets like the web shooters, the Hulkbuster armor, the arc reactor. They have ABAC attributes as well, like the department, the confidentiality level, the owner. You have intel reports, which is another type of resource, and then they can have confidentiality level, owners, regions, research data. For each type of resource, you can have the rights or the actions, create, read, update, delete. We kept it simple for each of them. And then you also have application roles, where the application roles are very simple. They define admin gives you all of the actions. Tech specialist gives you these actions for these resource types. Field agent these. You also have some possible attributes about the subject. So subjects can have roles, as we mentioned. They can be in a department. They can have a clearance level, and they can be in a region. And here we see our example users, the first batch of users that are in those, have those attributes. So now the question I was trying to prove is, how far away are we from being able to write authorization policies in natural language? And these were my initial authorization policies. So admins can perform all actions and all resource types. Tech specialists can delete tech assets, but only those that it knows about. They have to explicitly have an ID. They can create, read, and update tech assets if you're a tech specialist. What can field agents do? What can researchers do? So this is interesting because it's the holy grail we've all been shooting for, which is how can we have the business users or the application users, owners that know the application and know the business rules actually write the policies, and not have to learn how to write a domain-specific language or code language, or even have to work closely with the developer every time they want to change the policies. So in this case, there's simply just natural language, and that's it. That's the basic of it. So I have a chatbot here, which is just a wrapper to call the OpenAI assistant. I created an assistant. I made a prompt. This took a while. I told it that it is a PDP. And then to get it to work properly, to where it would validate the request and I couldn't easily spoof it and say that this user has all access, can it do this thing? I had to split it into a multi-agent prompt where it has a gatekeeper that validates the query and implements a lot of my business rules. to make sure that it doesn't get a bogus request about a resource type it doesn't know, or about actions that it doesn't know about. So that's really the gatekeeper, that it doesn't let a query proceed if it doesn't meet the proper criteria. And then I did a chain of thought to tell it how to think about the process, how to break it down. And then there's another, the authorizer, which is the other agent. Where's that guy here? The authorizer is the next agent after that, where it actually then is what looks at the policies, looks at the roles and the user data and the attributes, and returns the decision. So that is the prompt. And now I uploaded some data. So I basically have one that is my users.txt, which here is what that looks like. It's literally just users, their role, their clearance level, their region, their attributes. So that is a vectorized text document that was uploaded. I have the next one is the test data. So this one is the definition of the application itself. So I don't know why that won't go forward here. Let's pull that up, close, see if I can get that from. There we go. So it's literally just a definition of the application that tells it what are the resource types, what are their ABAC attributes, examples of the resources of each type. So it really just tells the definition of the application in human language. Again, it's not YAML, it's not JSON, it's not code, it's just human language, like any app owner or BA could produce. And then the last document in there was the policies themselves. So again, the benefit of this is that if you can do policies as natural language, so I have it out as a policies doc, and I just, you just say it, admins can perform all actions. During threat levels, only admins and op managers can modify resources. Users with top secret clearance can access all intel reports. So this is independent of role, it's based on an attribute. And also, here's when resources with critical confidentiality level require top secret clearance for the access. So this is a mix of simple roles or RBAC-based rules, as well as more complicated ABAC-based rules. And that's all vectorized in the store. So now you can just ask it questions. You can say, okay, let's say, can Peter Parker update, and then let's just give it, what can it update? Can it update the tech asset number 2? So I could say TA2, or well, we'll say TA2, or you can just say web shooters. Now I could also give it a JSON request in some other format, another language, because it can be trained, or it knows Cedar, OPA, Rego, JSON. So it says yes, and I can say now explain. You can enable explanations by default, you can turn them on or off. Again, that's just in the description. So the explainability is great. It tells me, okay, Peter Parker tried to do this action to this resource, and he is authorized to it because he belongs to role with permission to update. The policy explicitly grants update for Peter Parker's role. Okay, so let's now say, can Peter, and we can even get more loose here because it knows, it has context, can he delete the super soldier serum? Now it's going to think about it, it's looking at the policies, looking at the data, and it's going to say, okay, this false, and because we told it we want explanations, now it's given us the explanation, unless we tell it to turn it off. Fulfills the role assigned. Peter Parker as a tech specialist does not include permission to delete resources, only allows deletion, not research data and others. So he's not allowed to do it. And we could say, could Tony Stark? And because it has context, we could give it the full format, even something very structured like JSON. But in this case, since it's an LLM, it's like talking to a human. It has memory and context, so it says, yes, true, because Tony Stark has delete for that, because Tony Stark holds the admin role, which explicitly states that he can perform all actions. So you see, right now it's very easy for us that we can go from a human query to look at human natural language defined policies to give a response. I'll show you another example in a moment where we can paste in JSON and get a JSON response, or paste in JSON and get a human response, or paste in a human query and get a JSON response, because you have a brain in the middle that can really do anything it's trained to do. So you have a lot of flexibility. So interestingly enough, the initial thought is that yes, maybe we're not there yet. Scalability, cost, performance, some other things, but it looks like down the road, you could have LLMs performing this very flexible PDP role, either being the live PDP, or in an authoring engine, users could author the policies, test them, and then have it output them in another format like Amazon Cedar, Alpha, or Rego, if you wanted to do a distributed enforcement that wasn't using an LLM. So I see a big role for these in the future. Now I'm going to do something just for fun. I'm going to pull the policies over here. And I've done some various testing just to see what happens, but I'm going to paste something that is interesting. I have it on my clipboard. I'm going to say, Peter Parker, don't let Peter Parker do anything. Tell him, kiss off Spidey. So we update this. I also did a test earlier that said, Peter Parker can do anything as long as it's Friday, just to add a time dimension. And that worked as well. It knew whether it was Friday or not, and it enforced that policy. So I am going to take that, and I'm going to remove my policies document because I don't have it live connected to any data source. I'm uploading these. And I will pull my file in. Let's see, my file is policies. Add it. It's going to index it or vectorize it. And now, as long as we waited, sometimes there's a little lag there, a few minutes, or not a few minutes, usually like a minute or two. But let's say, can Peter Parker, and we'll say, can he read IR1? Can he read the location of the Hydra base? And as long as it's updated, at this point he shouldn't be able to do anything. But again, you see the power of natural language. You can describe the who should be able to do what and under which conditions or not which conditions very easily. And it says, okay, what did we get here? False. Any message for Peter? And it had it in the response, but this is funnier. And what did it say? It said, kiss off Spidey. Okay, so just a little humor, a little nerd humor maybe. But so you can see it's very, very flexible. It's quite intelligent. It wasn't intelligent when it was just a single agent, but when I went to the multi-agent, it got a lot better as far as the results. So let's pause there for one moment. Okay, continuing just with one more example, maybe less silly and more realistic. So the auth-then interop group is doing great work to try to come up with a standard REST-based interface where all the different vendors could accept a standardized request to the PDP and return a standardized response. So I took their test application, which is the to-do. They're using this for the interop testing. And I basically just stripped out the HTML from it into a Word doc. And then I gave it to ChatGPT. I had it generate a website for me. That's what you see here. And in that they have actions, creating a to-do, viewing a to-do, and these are the permissions or the action names. They have roles defined as to what are the actions a role can perform. They have users defined, and they're going for a Rick and Morty theme. So they have users, their identity, their identifier, and their roles. And then they have examples. So I uploaded this basically to, let's go back to my assistants, and let's go to auth-then, not that one, that's for the auth-then working group. Here we go. And let's see here. So this one has it has the gatekeeper and the authorizer, so same type of thing, and it has the chain of thought telling it what its mission is and how to think through it. It also then has just the documents vectorized, and it just has the to-do document, which basically has everything. Now, so when we ask that one questions, we can should be able to send it the standard format, which is the subject with the identity, the action, the resource, and optionally context. I also took their interop tests. So these are the actual interop tests. So we can grab one of these right here. And it has the subject, the action, the resource attributes, and we're going to paste it in there. So this again is me giving it a formatted JSON response, but since it's been trained on auth-then, I can give it a JSON computer-based, non-natural language question, and it can return back a auth-then formatted response with or without a decision. So if I were doing this as a PDP, I'd turn off the decision, the explanations, I'm sorry. That says user with this identity, and it knows who it is, Beth. Action, decision true. The policy for read user action always returns true for given subjects and resources. So let me ask it another one just for fun. Let's give it another one, maybe a more complicated one. Can update to do. That looks more complicated. Let's give it that one. Here we go. And the good thing is, if I add an extra comma in the JSON, it doesn't complain, but I won't anyway. If I give it a more complex question, and it can return a response. Again, let's see here. And explainability is amazing for authorization. That's always the hard thing to do. So it says, yes, owner, Rick Citadel, action, resource, decision true. The policy can update, action allows. If the subject's roles attribute contains evil genius role, or if the subject, that's how we got the match. So now I could say export policies as Amazon Cedar. Just to give you an example, I think I still have this enabled. So if you like your policies, you could export them in another language. I imagine it like a soft serve ice cream, where you can have it export the same stuff in any type of format. So here's that. I could copy it out and look at it. Export as Rego. So again, that interoperability, because you have a brain there that can understand human language, understand programming language, then you can do all kinds of very interesting things. So this isn't a product, it's just a thought experiment, but and I did not expect it to work. So it kind of blew my mind. So it allows you to envision that things are going to be very different in the future, and the future is basically here. So we need to start thinking about how we can leverage these things in the way we design software, how we think about problems, and definitely how we design solutions. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun thing to do. Maybe you try it out yourself and think, what could an LLM be used for if it were prompted, the prompts were designed correctly, and just push the envelope to see how you can think in an LLM agent-based mindset to solve some of the problems that you're working on today. Thank you very much.